The Federal Reserve doesn't understand inflation, which is why it could do real damage if the Iran war doesn't end quickly. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Disruptions caused by the Iran war, especially oil markets, can spike prices. Already, the average cost of gasoline is inching up. Should the conflict go on, worries about inflation will rise. The real danger, however, is how the Federal Reserve will react. For starters, it won't even think about cutting interest rates. It believes the way you control inflation is by depressing the economy. In their minds, reducing short-term rates will stimulate commerce, and that fuels inflation. Incredibly, should the war continue for a while, expect to start hearing our central bank mutter about the need to raise the cost of borrowing. All this underscores the profound misunderstanding central bankers and all too many economists have about inflation. They really don't get that there are two kinds of inflation, non-monetary and monetary. The non-monetary variety comes from disruptions to production, like natural disasters or the pandemic lockdowns, or as might happen here, from a war. Monetary inflation comes when the value of a currency, the dollar in this case, goes down, usually by creating too much of it. The Fed doesn't understand that the best response to non-monetary inflation is to let events and free markets sort things out. Trying to curb economic activity by keeping rates artificially high is perverse and destructive. Imagine if Washington imposed a 25% national sales tax. Normal people would know that for the Fed to then try to depress the economy to bring down the resulting higher prices would be lunatic behavior. Yet that's exactly the mentality of our central bank and virtually all other central banks. This alleged trade-off between inflation and unemployment is holy writ. You almost never hear Fed officials talk about the value and integrity of the dollar. That's almost like physicians never concerning themselves about the health of their patients. Central banks are supposed to keep their currencies healthy. What they do now is monetary malpractice. Which brings us to the Iran war. If the conflict does affect prices, the Fed should stand back. In fact, it should but won't cut short-term rates, particularly the interest rate it pays currently on bank reserves, while announcing that it no longer believes prosperity causes inflation and that its goal henceforth is a stable dollar. Which brings us to Kevin Warsh, who is President Trump's nominee to replace the current and misguided Fed head, Jerome Powell, whose term expires in May. Warsh realizes how flawed the current Fed approach is and in need of a fundamental overhaul. In the meantime, let's pray for a quick, successful conclusion of this war and the elimination of Iran's evil regime. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions, and I look forward to being with you soon again.